Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello there for another Thoughts at Three. My name is Matt, for those of you who have never met me before or watched one of our online assemblies, and I am part of the schools team at Southampton City Mission. We are an independent Christian charity that runs the Basics Banks in Southampton, and we serve the church as the church served the city. We would normally be going into schools at this time of year, doing our Question of Faith RE days and running prayer spaces and doing assemblies where the whole school would get together at the beginning or the end of the day for a short time to think about a specific topic. But unfortunately, we can't do that right now because of the lockdown that is still continuing. So we've been broadcasting these online assemblies for about 5.5 weeks now, and we are anticipating that we will be going for some time more. It's summer half term in a couple of weeks' time, which we're looking forward to. We'll probably take a break then, but until then, we will be here with you every day at 3 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the 12th of May today, and I will be talking to you today about death ceremonies, which sounds a little bit frightening, a little bit scary, but we're going to try and keep it light and keep it engaging. If you haven't already, please do like us on Facebook, like our page, which is Southampton City Mission. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is SCM Schools. You can also find some behind the scenes photos on our Instagram, which is SCM Schools as well. And we would really love it, actually, if you could share this video. We would love to build our audience. When we go into schools, we normally see approximately 16,000, 15,500 to 16,000 children every year. And we are certainly not getting those viewing figures. So if you would like to, please do share this video so that other people can watch, or host a watch party or something like that. Thanks for those of you who are tuning in live. I can see there's about 10 people watching at the moment. If you could let us know on the comments what your name is, where you're from, how you know us, and so I can say hello to you, I would super appreciate that. Thank you very much. And if you're not watching live, but you are watching at another time when it's more appropriate or convenient for your school, then hello to you too. You can still comment, still let us know that you're watching, still add your questions. So if you do have any questions today about death ceremonies, please do add those in. Now, in the trailer for this assembly this afternoon, you would have seen me holding a pack of cards. These are my DMC Elite, which I bought recently. Hello to Heather, who's watching. Nice to see you, Heather. We haven't caught up for so long. Send me a message, Heather. It'd be great to catch up at some point. Anyway, my DMC Elite. I'm not sure what the DMC stands for. Maybe it's Death Magic cards. I don't know. No, not really. Something else. But these are a fantastic pack of cards. I'm going to show you a trick with those in a minute. But why death ceremonies? Well, actually, death is part of faith. It's part of what we believe. And as you know, when we go into schools, we help children to think about what they believe. We're invited in as real life Christians to talk about what Christians believe, but we explain that whatever you as a child or a teacher, parent, etc., want to believe, that's your right actually to believe whatever you want to. And lots of different people have lots of different ideas about death, about what happens after death, about what you should do when someone dies. And actually, at the current time, it's a really important thing to be thinking of because, of course, there are lots of people dying across the world because of the coronavirus crisis. And unfortunately, at the moment, the death ceremony, which we would normally observe in the Christian or Western world, a funeral, is not as normal as it would be. I've been to a number of different funerals, and I've seen some where people dress all in black, some where people dress in really colorful clothes, some where it's a very somber occasion and everyone's very sad, some where it's quite a happy occasion and people are celebrating. Actually, a friend of mine spoke to me recently and said that he had to officiate for a funeral recently in which there was no mention of faith at all. And the people there just thought that was it. It was the end of the person's life. Not many people turned up. Not many people apparently knew this person. And it was just a really, really sad event. But for Christians, we believe that actually there is life after death. And many different faiths, many different cultures throughout history have believed that there is something after death, that this life we're in now is not it, that there is something else. And for Christians, we believe that that thing to come, for those of us who believe in Jesus, is called heaven. And the Bible says that heaven is a perfect place where there is no more death or tears or sadness or anger or destruction. But we'll come back to that a little bit later on in the question time. So what do this pack of cards have to do with all of that? Well, you will have seen yesterday on the trailer when I showed you these cards that the joker on these cards, that's upside down, is quite an unusual joker. And I thought it'd be quite relevant because it's like almost like a silhouette of blackness, of sort of death, maybe. It looks a little bit sort of dark and brooding there. So I thought maybe I'd use these cards. Now, these are just a normal pack of cards. I'll take away the joker there. You can see that this is a normal pack of cards. All of the normal cards are there. And what I can do is I can just cut these a few times. So I can just cut them like that just to mix them up so that you know that they're all sort of shuffled together. I can slummy them together like this so you can see there's no breaks. I'm not holding a card anywhere or anything like that. And what I'd love to do actually is I'm going to riffle through the cards like this, and I want you to say stop whenever you would like to. Now, there's nobody here in the room with me, so hopefully somebody online who is watching is going to say stop. And I'm going to riffle through, and then when you say stop, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to take a break like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work out what comes next. You see, in life, we're very obsessed with what happens next. That's why people are fearful of death, because they can't know what happens next. And so I'm going to hopefully show, illustrate that actually maybe we can know what comes next. I can see Anne-Marie, you're watching with Alex and Harriet, and you're adding a question on there, which is great. If you could get one of them to just type stop when I riffle through these, that would be wonderful. I'm going to riffle through again, not getting a stop in the comments. Oh, I've gone out. I'll just make it up. I'll just riffle and I'll cut there, and I'll just riffle again and I'll cut there, and I'll riffle again and I'll cut there like that. Okay, now I'm going to hold these cards. Oh, thanks, I got to stop. I'm going to hold these cards steady. Okay, I can't see the top, I can't see the bottom. But what I'm going to try and do is to work out what comes next. Where we've stopped there, what card comes next? And I need to just concentrate for a moment. I'm getting a number. So actually, it's not a number. It's a card, which is a picture card. So I think it's a queen, and I think this might be actually the Queen of Clubs. I'm going to hold it up and see if I've got it right. Unfortunately, that's not the Queen of Clubs, is it? That's the Five of Hearts. So you see, we can't always be certain about what comes next. But actually, what I didn't tell you, of course, is that we're talking about death today. And so when we're dead, or for some of us, when we die, we get buried. So maybe actually I should look at the bottom card and see if that is the card that I talked about. You won't believe this. It's actually the Queen of Clubs, the card that I said it would be. So I somehow worked out, I somehow knew what would come next. And for Christians, actually, that's what we believe about death, is that we know that something comes next. We know that if we believe in Jesus, he promised that we will be in heaven with him, that there is something after death to look forwards to. And so when we have a funeral death ceremony, we celebrate that person's life. We rejoice in all that they've accomplished in their life, about who they were, what they were like, how well we love them. And then we also celebrate the fact that we believe that they're now in heaven with God, able to live forever in his presence, with no more sadness, no more tears, and no more death. We're going to unpack that a little bit more as we answer some of your questions. So I'm just going to move across to the other part of my home studio now, and we'll see if my son Charlie likes the message that I've left for him today. I'll be back in a mo. So there we are, I'm back and still here and still able to see you. Hopefully you're still able to see and hear me. And we have got some questions coming in on this topic of death ceremonies, and we have got some questions to answer as well. And the first frequently asked question on the topic of death ceremonies that we quite often get asked in schools when we do this topic is, why do things die? And actually, lots of things die. Plants die, animals die, people die, etc., etc. And for Christians, we believe that we are part of a broken world, that actually the world was created perfectly and wonderfully without death. But because of decision, a choice that the first people made, that actually they let death into the world. Some people would believe that's just an analogy story for people to understand. But whatever it is, whatever you believe, it's true to say that things die, that actually our bodies only last a certain amount of time, that actually if we contract a disease, if we get hurt in some way, that actually we are going to die. You see, these bodies, this flesh is not made to last. But Christians believe that there is another part to us, an eternal part to us that is made to last. That part that we can't touch or feel or hear or taste even, but actually it's another spiritual part to us, what we would call our spirit. And that part of us will live forever. And so things die because they're not meant to last. But interestingly, trees, which people will know if they've done a trees as a symbol day with us in school, trees will live if they don't have a disease, if they're not chopped down. Trees will just go on and on and on living, which is kind of an extraordinary thing. So the next question, which we sometimes get asked, is what happens after death? And lots of different cultures, as I've said earlier, believe lots of different things about what happens after death. Some people believe that nothing happens and that's it. That's just your time done. You disappear from existence and that's the end. I don't like to think that that's the case, because it just seems a little bit pointless, to be honest. Some people believe in reincarnation, which is where you become something else. And they might say that actually, if you've done something good in your life, then you would get to become something better. But if you've done bad things in your life, then maybe you become something worse. Some people believe that actually we become part of the universe, that as we move from our fleshly bodies into the next stage of life, that actually we mingle with the universe and we become part of everything in existence. But for Christians, we believe that actually we have the opportunity to go to heaven. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Whoever comes to me can enter into the kingdom of God, can become part of the kingdom of heaven. And John had this vision of heaven descending down onto earth at the end of his life. That he said that at the end of all things, that Jesus would return and he would look in the book of life to see whose names were there, and any whose names were in the book of life would become part of the kingdom of heaven. And then John saw heaven descending down onto the earth, a new heaven and a new earth, where there'll be no more darkness, no more sadness, no more tears, no more destruction, no more pain, no more anger, no more death, but just people who would be with God, God living with his people and God's people living with him for eternity. Some people think about heaven being like sat on a fluffy cloud playing a harp. I don't like to think that, because that sounds a little bit boring as well to me. I sometimes think of heaven as just being able to do anything. Like people often think about, oh, I'd love to be able to fly. I can imagine in heaven that actually we would have the ability to fly, that we could sail through the clouds, that we could swim under the sea without having to breathe oxygen, because we're these spiritual beings, not human beings anymore. I believe it's a beautiful place full of beauty. Jesus called it paradise. He said to the thief on the cross who hung next to him, who said to him, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. So yeah, I think that heaven, that's what happens after death. We've got some questions coming in, which I'm going to try and answer. So Charlie says, what if a person dies and they don't believe in God? That's a really great question, Charlie. Actually, some people might say that they don't get to go to heaven, but I believe the Bible's not completely clear on that, actually. Jesus said that he was the way to heaven. It's not about believing in God, but it's about believing in Jesus, that he was the Son of God. He was God on earth who lived perfectly, died horribly, so that anyone who believes in him can be forgiven. And then he gives them new life. He gives them the opportunity to become part of his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, after they die. And sometimes people don't get the opportunity to hear that. I don't believe that that discounts them from being part of heaven after their death, especially if we're thinking about children that have died, for example, that never had the opportunity maybe to even speak. Sometimes these questions we don't always have the answers to.
but I do know that Jesus is all about love. And so he will give everyone every opportunity to become part of his kingdom. As I said earlier, the names of the people who will be in heaven will be written in that book of life. And Jesus said, to be in that book of life, you don't have to follow certain rules. You don't have to behave a certain way. You have to believe in him. And so I can imagine the spirits of all people maybe who have died getting the opportunity to say whether they believe in him or not when they meet him at the end of time. Hopefully that answers your question, Charlie. Alex and Harriet are asking, why do some people die younger than others? And that's a great question. Again, it might be that they've been involved in some sort of event that's injured them. It might be that they've caught a disease. It might be that something's been wrong with their bodies since they were born. We don't know why these things sometimes happen. And it is part of living in this broken world where things aren't perfect, that sometimes people die before we're ready for them to go. But Christians believe that actually God's timing is perfect. And although we can't understand it right now, that actually his plans are better than our plans. And he is working all things together for the good of those who love him. And so although we don't understand why some people die young, actually we still believe that God is able to be sovereign in those situations, that he's able to bring restoration and wholeness to those people who have died. I hope that answers your question, Alex and Harriet. There's another one coming through here. Why does God allow things like coronavirus to happen when he knows it will end so much life? And again, that's a really great question. We're getting deep into our questions today. God gives us choice. The answer to that is that these things happen because people mess around with the world that he's created in ways that it shouldn't be messed around. And it's due to our choices that these things happen. If God didn't allow us to do that, to make choices, then actually we'd be like robots. We would have no free will. But because we have free will to do good things and to do bad things. And sometimes the result of people's choices is that diseases are let into the world. And God allows it because he wants us to have free choice. He wants us to have free choice so that we have the ability to choose him. That even in the midst of the storms, that we can say to him, help me get to know you. Help me, even though I'm dying, help me to enter into that heaven after I die in this world. So hopefully that's an answer to your question, Alex. We haven't got time to go into all the depth that we could, but I would be very happy to have a further discussion with you at some point if you'd like to. I think we've answered all of the questions that we can. So it just leaves me really now to just pray. And while I do, whether you are a Christian or not, whether you believe something else, or you believe the same thing as me, whatever it may be, if you would like to join in with this prayer, then you just need to say Amen at the end. Amen means I agree. If you don't want to agree, say nothing. It will go over your head and you'll be fine. But just take a moment just to think for yourself about all of these things. What do you think happens after death? Why do you think we should celebrate people's lives through these death ceremonies or funerals that we have for people? Keep that in your mind just for a moment as I pray. Dear God, thank you for our lives. Thank you for everything which keeps us alive that we don't often take time to think about. The air we breathe, the food that we eat, our eyes and ears and brains, every part of our bodies. May we know the hope which comes from believing that death is not the end, but it is a doorway into the next part of our existence. And for those who trust in your Son, Jesus, how that means an eternity in paradise with him. Help us not to take the time that we have on this earth for granted, but to use it in worthwhile ways through the things that we think, the actions we take, and the words that we speak. Even if we don't understand these difficult topics, I pray that you would bring us peace and grace as we consider and as we think and as we learn and as we reflect. Help us to trust you. If you'd like to agree, you can say Amen. Well, it's been really great to be with you this afternoon. Thanks so much for all of you who are watching. And if you're watching on catch up and we haven't answered your question, please do add it in the comments and we will do our best to answer that for you. If you've got more questions, or you would like your question answered again in a longer way, we are going to start adding questions to our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. So if you would like a deeper answer to your question, please add that to the comments and we'll make sure that's one of the first ones that we put on our questions playlist on our YouTube channel. For now, though, it just leaves me to say goodbye. So God bless you. Hope you are having a great week. Make sure you're staying safe. We will see you tomorrow. Ellie will be back with another assembly at 3 o'clock tomorrow. That's Wednesday, the 13th of May. And she will be talking about belonging. So I hope you join her for that. I will see you soon. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.